Okay, we back at it once again. Just trying to get comfortable around this piece. So I wanted to, continue the conversation about expectations and pressure, and then I wanted to talk about, I think, some of the underlying issues for no other reason than just to, like, nobody else is here. We ain't doing nothing else, so I feel like we just got to get into it. And basically, some of the things I think that I've noticed is that in coming up, right, like as a man, can only speak on it from a man's perspective, but coming up, you aren't, right, most of us aren't shown this image of what a real man is supposed to be, right? Like, there's 75% of us kind of come up in single parent homes for the most part, and then so just from a man's perspective, right, like, you don't really get to see kind of what that looks like. And then from watching people like Kevin Samuels and stuff like that, and trying to grow and trying to understand certain things about myself and about some of my deficiencies and the deficiencies in my thought process and how I move and operate and stuff like that. You come to certain realizations, and then again you're doing that work in yourself. You start catching yourself with certain stuff that you see, and certain times when you might get out of your frame, you tend to you get better at it. You have another opportunity, and then those are just more opportunity that you have to kind of get it right. There was a philosopher that we studied in college. It was what was his name? He was a French philosopher. I can't remember his name, but basically the idea was that you are your actions, and so for me it's a liberating idea, because you're not necessarily bound to who you are or what decisions you've necessarily made up until that point, but you get an opportunity to be whatever action it is that you choose to be the next time you have the opportunity. So they gave the example of, like, if you have an opportunity to fight, or you have an opportunity to do something and save someone or something like that, and you act like a coward, and then you might be labeled as a coward for the most part. In order to change that, then all you have to do is, the next time you get an opportunity, then you do something heroic or something like that, and now you're labeled a hero. But then again, that thing is static. I mean, that thing is fluid. So if you come across another opportunity, then you have to act accordingly. And the more you've built up these chances or opportunities, and the more you act accordingly in the way that you want to be regarded, then that's how you build up that reputation. And so trying to understand that, and then in my life applying that philosophy, and then again doing some of this research and learning some of these statistics, and following people like I said, Kevin Samuels and MTR, and some of these other people and stuff like that, and just kind of hearing other men kind of put things in a way, in a perspective that, not that I hadn't heard before, not that I hadn't thought about before, but just to, see it be accepted on that level. Because that's usually something that we kind of do on the hush, right? Like, when we start talking about stuff like that, like, a lot of times we got to make sure, like, women aren't around, because when we start talking about, like, accountability and things of that nature, anything, to that point, then it starts to become kind of touchy of a subject. And even, it seems like, even when you talk about things from a man's perspective, and you try to say about what we deal with, that even seems to be met with some pushback, and it always is like, oh well, women deal with this, and then but men deal with it. Oh well, women deal with this, and it seems like there can never just be a set discussion on, hey, these are the issues that we have, can we address them? Instead of bringing up kind of other issues, at that point, because you never really deal with them if you continue to do that. So yeah, like I see certain things of, like I said, myself personally, of growing up, I didn't have a father at all. I don't know what my father's name is at all. Don't have a picture of him at all. So that's even deeper than I think, the single parent household thing where your dad might be in the picture, but he's not really there or something like that, So I thought about that a lot and regarded that a lot. And then I've known people, around me that had their father, and there were father figures kind of in the community that like took on that role, I think, for a lot of us. And so with all of those guys, I think I was able to, with my uncles and then my older cousins and stuff like that, I was able to kind of piece together, this straw man of like who I wanted to be eventually. And I was asked pretty recently by a woman, like, what made me, the man that I am. She said that she had never really been with a guy like me or talked to a guy like me, and basically like I kind of leveled her up for like all the dudes that she was going to be able to mess with from that point on. And I guess through a lot of questions and conversations, she was kind of curious, I think, about, from my upbringing and coming from where I came from, what it was that made me the man that I am. And I've been kind of thinking about that ever since, really deeply, because she's not the first person that's asked me that, and it is something that I haven't been able to necessarily pin down. Again, about myself, like I didn't come from like a super ghetto background. My mom pretty much kept us in the suburbs for the most part, and kept us away from a lot of BS, but it's still a lot of BS in the suburbs too, but it's just about who you choose to move around and again, how you operate and stuff like that. So I didn't really get into a lot of the gang stuff. I didn't really get into a lot of that fuck shit. Like I just kind of, I always moved my own way. I played a lot of basketball and stuff like that, and was kind of nerdy and stuff, but I just kind of kept to myself. And again, like going through a lot of these things that some of us go through in that regard, again, of growing up not having a father figure to kind of feed off of, you kind of, I guess, you see these different images and you see how you would like to move, and then sometimes even with people that aren't doing so well, you can see how you wouldn't want to end up. And so again, all of that to say, it's all been this constant work that I've been attempting to do on myself. Even through setting up this podcast, it was something that I've been wanting to do for the longest time, and now I've finally gotten to a point where I have it set up the way that I want, and just knocking out these goals. And then as I've gotten older, it's become easier and easier to accomplish certain things, and I know how to level myself up now and all of that sort of stuff. So it's really gratifying to finally feel some of that success kind of coming to fruition, and really seeing the Jarvis that I always envisioned myself being, and I can like surpass that and just kind of do greatness. And then from so me personally, I was able to overcome that, but then there are so many other guys that I see like that aren't able to actually overcome that are in situations where they had the same sort of beginning, but they weren't able to pull themselves out of it, I guess, or maybe they didn't have the support system or the men around them, I guess, that I did, which I didn't really have a ton of dudes around. It was just the ones that I chose to learn from, where like I researched the greats and did a lot of reading, like on like Marcus Garvey and Martin Luther King and Muhammad Ali and Michael Jordan and all of this stuff, and about how to be a leader. And that was always like me and my I say my cousin, my best friend, Myron. That was always like our thing, is like, just for whatever reason, by de facto, even if we didn't necessarily want to, we've always been kind of thrust to the forefront of our group, and people have kind of looked to us for counsel, or like when things are tough, they look to us for like what to do. And that's a huge responsibility, especially being young and stuff like that, because you got a group of guys around and none of us really know what the hell we doing, you know what I'm saying? But whoever is like, I guess, the loudest in the group, and can get their point across the best, is the one that everybody will tend to follow, even if you're following that person to destruction, I guess. But through refining that sort of leadership and trying to grow and be a better person, and obviously you don't do everything perfect, and you kind of you make mistakes along the way, but you keep trying, and I think that's the most important part, is that who is willing to step up to the plate to keep trying to refine themselves, because it's easy to just settle and say that you're behind, or settle and say that you've messed up, but then how are you going to pick yourself back up from that and make yourself into something better? I looked at gang members, former gang members that have done like crazy stuff, the people served jail time, crazy jail time, and now they're reformers in the community. They talk to kids, they try to make a change. And I always think about, like, what is that line that exists, if it even exists? It's an imaginary line, but like, where is that line of atonement? Like, there's the hero circle. Like, where is it? The hero's journey. Yeah, I'm gonna get into it. I'm just gonna try to get comfortable with this shit. The hero's journey, right? So you got the call to adventure, right? Which I think of as like, we all start out bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and stuff like that, and new to the world, and we don't understand, we don't know what we don't know. So, we watch cartoons and we watch Disney movies and all that sort of stuff, and we get this image of what life is, what love is, what relationships are, and all that sort of stuff. And that's whatever your call to adventure is. Whatever, when they ask you, like, what do you want to be when you grow up, that's like the purest form of you, I think. People will say whatever they, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a firefighter, or just, what would you do if if you had no other restrictions and you weren't thinking about money? You, like, at that point, you didn't even know what a dollar really was, what the value of it was. So I think of that. And then it says supernatural aid, which usually in the movie is like some fairy godmother or some figure that comes to you and leads you on this path. Jiminy Cricket, something like that, leads you on this path, and is like a guide for you. But you go, but like, not to go through the whole thing, you can look it up, but when you get to atonement, right? Because you go through this abyss, and it's like the lowest point on the circle, when you're in the abyss, and it's basically death and rebirth. And that's you have to, like I always say, the version of you that exists now, that thinks the way that you think now, has to die for you to be able to accept new ideas, for you to be able to accept new information. Like that version of you kind of has to die, because everything that you thought up until that point that made you that person, if it doesn't, then you're not going to be able to receive that new information. So it sounds like morbid or whatever, but I kind of think of it that way. Like that version of you kind of has to die for you to be able to be reborn into this new version of you with this new paradigm and this new information. So then you go through a transformation, which can be a lot of things, but it's usually something personal. After you've gone through this death and rebirth, that's a very personal, like, intense thing that you have to go through. And then so, you're still becoming, who you are, like, and now you're reborn, but you have to still go through some sort of a transformation. And then you go through atonement, which I think is, for me, it's the most important step on the wheel, because being able to get past all of your past demons, I think that's probably, for me, where you would probably fight, like, the dark version of yourself, right? When you have to atone for all of the things that you are holding on to, and all of the insecurities that you have that hold you back from becoming the best version of yourself. Because, I try to move with that in mind, that I am, for the woman that I find, that I make my wife, I want to be making myself into the best version of myself for her. I don't want her to get an incomplete version of me. And not to say that I'm going to be perfect, or that I'm going to be 100% there when I meet her, but I want to be doing that work on myself. And that's going to take away from that imposter syndrome that I talked about, because that, I think, is what defeats it, is by putting in the work. Once you actually put that work in, and you cross those hurdles, then nobody can tell you shit, because you've already done it. And excuse me, now you can rest on those laurels, because you've already done it. You have the experience. Michael Jordan once said, like, once he hit his first game-winning shot, he was never scared to take another shot again, because why would you be? Like, you experienced that moment, you looked it in the face, you conquered it, and then now anything less than that shouldn't scare you at all. So once you've passed all of these points, and then you reach your point of atonement, then you come to the return, which is like usually the end of the movie, where the hero kind of comes back home and is celebrated and stuff like that after the journey and all that sort of stuff. And now he's like the complete version. He has all the powers unlocked at the end of the game. You got all the powers and cheat codes and flying around and stuff like that. And that's kind of a metaphor. I think this was built for all of us, like, from all of our experience, our shared experience. And whoever created this, I think that he had some sort of divine inspiration, just to, and this isn't something that's new, it's been, kind of repeated throughout history, but, it's really is like a story of our redemption, and how we can grow and kind of be better, and not that it's going to be like a fairy tale or something like that, but I think you trying to put yourself through these trials, to test yourself and to see what you're made of, and the only way that you can learn the most about yourself is to be tested in that way. And that's, just all, like I said, to say about the work, that I've been finding that, I constantly have to keep putting in on myself, is to keep, so you don't just go through the hero's journey one time. I think that every time you level up, you got to kind of go through that journey, for the most part, and conquer those things, that new version of yourself that you thought, you had made it, or you thought, you had surpassed whatever limitation, and now you set a new goal. Now you have a new level up that you have to do, and I think, for some people, obviously you find a level that you're comfortable at, and then some people, you stick there, and then some of us have to keep leveling up. We don't feel comfortable, we feel complacent. I think that goes into, the theme, I think, of the title of the video, the expectations and the pressure, because, again, starting from a place of not having this figure to go off of, so we're already kind of starting behind, because we don't have like a good role model to follow. So now, as a young man, you try to get with a young woman, let's say, and she also didn't have this role model to follow. You she's looking to you to be it. She's, you're supposed to be a man. Let's say you're like 25, 26 or something like that. You're supposed to be a man. You're staying at home with your kids, with your mom or something like that, and you're not doing well, work wise or money wise and stuff like that, and you're not necessarily living up to what quote unquote is supposed to be, a real man or whatever. And she's young as well, and she hasn't seen this thing either. So it's like you both have these expectations of each other. Like, you expect her to be a wife and to know these things, and she wasn't necessarily taught them, and then she's expecting you to be a man and take care of this stuff at like 25, 26, you know what I'm saying? And then they start talking about men ain't shit, and it's a vicious cycle. When no one tells us when we're that age that, hey man, the average dude doesn't reach his peak until 35-ish, you know what I'm saying? Like, your brain doesn't really wake up until you're 30 years old. Like once you get 35, 40, that's when you start reaching your financial prime and stuff like that. Like, I heard something like the average man makes the most that he'll ever make at the age of 52. Like, when I heard that, I was like mind blown. Like, I've been running this race like it's a freaking sprint the whole time, which you should. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, you know what I'm saying? But there's nothing wrong with running a race like it's a sprint, but to know like exactly how long you have in the race, I think is important too, because we talk about these, we throw around these figures, all the time, like 6 figures and stuff like that, the tropes that we all know, right? 6 figures, 6-pack, 6 foot tall, you know what I'm saying? All of these things, right? But I don't think a lot of people really think about what that means or what that looks like, what those percentages actually look like. You got a guy like Kevin Samuels that I think now is really doing a service to the community, because he's actually bringing light to what these numbers represent, and how hard it is to actually get into these classes, people. And so I think that adds value to everyone, right? Like, when we actually know what that looks like, when it's, just a immature, woman talk, 22-year-old woman talk, yeah, I need a man that makes $500,000 a year or some crazy stuff like that. I be watching Fresh and Fit, man. Like, it be these women on there, and I don't know if they're dealing with guys like that on a regular basis. I don't know, because that show was filmed in Miami, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe that's just who they're around. But for just normal looking women, just average woman, and she's like, yeah, she needs a dude that makes like $500K, and it's just baffling, because I don't really think that she knows, what that means, even, what that looks like, or what it takes to make $500,000 a year, and I don't want to be stereotypical, but it's the truth. Now we have this OnlyFans thing where, women can make money very quickly, and a lot of money. It's a lot of dudes, I guess, out there that's willing to finance a woman's whole lifestyle just based off the fact of she's showing some pictures or something like that. So as long as that exists, obviously there's going to be some population of those women that their mindset is going to be skewed, because it's very easy for them to make money in that way, but not understanding, some of the things, I think, that again, like they talk about on Fresh and Fit, and like, as a man, right, you have to work to become who you are, your value. You have to work to increase your value. As a woman, I feel like, for the most part, they're born with, they're the fairer sex, right? They, you have the ability to carry life and bring life into the world, and as a man, we have to create that value. We come into the world and we have to go make something of ourselves. Like, a broke man out here isn't really worth anything for the most part. So you got to go and create yourself. But I think, but you can think of it as that's a gift, right? Because I have unlimited value that I can create. I can go work really hard at the construction site or something like that, build myself up into something, and I can level up as high as I want, for the most part. That's an exciting thing to think about. For me, as much work and effort as I put in, that's what I'm going to get back for the most part, and so I just, I think that I would advise any young guy that is out there that ever listens, to anything that I have to say, I would just say, just increase your value as much as possible. Just work on your grind and try to be the best version of yourself that you can be. And then in doing that, you're going to level up. And then like for me, I was heads down the whole time and wasn't even understanding how many levels I was surpassing, and then by the time I looked up, like I had leveled up so much, what I'm saying? Like nobody else was like around my level, what I'm saying? So it's, and I'm not like some huge millionaire or something like that, but just coming from where I came from and knowing the percentages of the young men that, kind of make it kind of to where I have, it's sometimes daunting for me to think about, but then I try not to think about it in that way because I feel like I still have a lot to do and to accomplish, but sometimes me and my couple of my friends do sit around and we have to remind ourselves, because you get caught up in the expectations and the pressure so much, and again, as a man, like you're not supposed to show emotion. Most of the time you kind of get mocked and it's not kosher, to show emotion for the most part. So a lot of times we hold a lot of this stuff inside. And again, the reason why, I wanted to start this thing, just, because I could be on here and I could just talk, and even if nobody listen, it's very therapeutic for the most part. I've been enjoying myself. I have no idea how long I've been talking. It seems like one person might be listening and have been listening for a minute, but thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. But yeah, I just wanted to just again share a little bit of my perspective on that, because I see it and I'm not perfect. Again, I'm just starting this thing, but I do think that there's something there that I really want to get into and would like to start a conversation about. And at the moment, my thought process and my conversation on it isn't as refined as I would like it to be, and as I hope that it would be in the future. But I think that this is at least a good start, and then to I guess to segue over to the pressure aspect, because I think I've been focusing on expectations a lot, because it's really intertwined, but it breeds this pressure on you to become. And so if you want to be this higher value person in society, then you constantly have to drive, you constantly have to do it. And then from a woman's aspect, from the women that I've talked to, it seems that when that pressure is applied to them, especially from a young age, from their mothers, telling them, hey, you have to go out there and not depend on a man. You have to be independent, get it for yourself. That causes a lot of pressure, on them as well, to become, instead of, and it might sound misogynistic in today's age, but instead of trying to work to become the wife for the husband that they want to have in the future and the best version of what that looks like. Because majority of the women that I've talked to, from women that work at 7-Eleven to women that are doctors and lawyers, like some of these women have told me that they don't want to have kids. They've been adamant when I met them, I don't want to have any kids. And then from being around a guy like me, eventually it's like, oh, you know what? It wouldn't be such a bad idea to have children. I didn't really want to see myself in another relationship, but maybe I'll give it another. It's like when a lot of these things that people say, it's like they've had bad experiences, and then they extrapolate that to all people. I've dealt with some bitchy women, you know, so now all women are like that. Or like I've dealt with some scrub dudes, and all dudes are like that. You know, instead of trying to come to the table with a open mind and heart, and you know, trying to really understand about that individual person, you know, because if we don't come with some sort of a olive branch, if we don't come with some sort of a benefit of the doubt, you know, then you're always going to be doing things not in good faith. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, you know, with every relationship, with every woman that I try to deal with, I try to come to the table with a clean slate. I ask a lot of questions. Like my method is kind of unorthodox. I think it would be to a lot of dudes. You know what I'm saying? But I want to get to know a woman. Like I ask a lot of in-depth questions about how they think, about what they think about a man. What men do they have in their life? Do they have a father figure in their life? Do they have an older brother or some man that they respect in their life? You know, what do they think a man wants from a woman? What does the general woman, or what do they want from a man? You know, stuff like that I don't necessarily think, you know, those questions get asked up front, you know, nowadays. I think a lot of people will just date just to date, and then I think they think that it'll just happen. That's what I hear a lot of, like, oh, you know, I'm just dating, I'm just having fun, and then, you know, if something happens, if I get in a relationship, then that's cool too. And it's almost like it's not an intentional thing. I've never understood that. Like, and maybe again, it's just me coming from it from a man's perspective, but we don't get approached, right? Like 99% of women are not gonna approach a dude. So if we want to start a conversation with a woman, we have to go and initiate that conversation. And, you know, I think it gets misunderstood, because if I come and talk to you as a woman and we in the mall or something like that, and I think you look fine, and I come and talk to you, obviously, like, I'm coming with the intention of, like, I don't know anything about you, and yeah, it's superficial, you know, and stuff like that, because I'm just judging you off of the way that you look. But obviously, like, you came out the house looking good, you know what I'm saying? And it's like we deny some of these our animalistic, you know, parts, you know, because we've been civilized and conditioned in this way. And it's like we're kind of missing out on some of these organic interactions, you know, with each other. And I think that's really unfortunate, because again, it's just simple chemistry to me. And like, if you see a woman that you like, you work up the nerve to go talk to her, and it takes 10-15 seconds, and then either you get her number or you don't, and then you keep it moving. And like, I don't see like how that's kind of become, it seems like that's almost become disrespectful to some women. Like, I heard this woman, I saw this woman on Facebook, and she posted like some post of Lisa Simpson with a stale face, and she was like, yeah, this is my face when I'm leaving the gas station, when I don't want any dudes to approach me. And I get it, like, you know, as a fine woman, probably, I'm sure, you know, y'all get approached freaking 10, 15, 20 times a day, if not more, you know what I'm saying? So I get it, that can maybe be a little bit exhausting sometimes when you're not having a good day and stuff like that. But it's like, from our perspective, if we feel like we're not said dude, and if you aren't in a relationship or something, you don't have a ring on or whatever, right? You're not married. So if you are out at the gas station or whatever, and a dude like me want to shoot my shot, right? And let's say you aren't in the mood, you done had the last 5 dudes come up and talk to you. Like, maybe that might just mean that you're not the woman for me or whatever. But who knows? Like, it could be. You don't know that. I don't know that. And I know that I don't have any ill intention. So if I come to you in good faith, and I come to you in a respectable way, and, you know, I'm not disrespecting you, and I'm just shooting my shot just to say like that I like your vibe, and, you know, I dig your style, and, you know, I'd like to spark a conversation with you, maybe take you out to coffee or something like that, if you're not taken, or if you're not spoken for, you know. I feel like if I approach in that way, like, and then sometimes, you know, a chick might bite my head off, like, you know what I'm saying, oh, I ain't da 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 da, you know. It ain't, I ain't gonna say that always happens, because I'm a smooth dude, but for some dudes, I think nowadays, especially in the social media era, like in the last 10 years, right, like there's been this shift in how we deal with each other and how we interact with each other. And I think a lot of guys, or women too, because there's a lot of awkward ass women out there too, man, for real. But like, I think a lot of people have lost this art of innuendo, of nuance. I think nuance is kind of lost nowadays, where there are just certain things, like as a guy, if you see a girl and she gives you a look or something like that, and it's okay to approach her, to ask her for a number, like it's nothing you can necessarily pinpoint. There may be certain things that you can pinpoint, pick up artists or whatever, try to tell you certain stuff, but like, there's certain stuff where it's just chemistry with a person, and it's just knowing people, being put in those situations enough times where you get to pick up on those certain signals, and it's natural, but the only way to get better at that as a man is to practice being in those situations. Same thing with women. Like as people, the only way to practice being in those situations with each other is to be in those situations with each other. And that's why I'm like, we're losing that. Like, why is it so awkward for me to go up to a random woman, especially not with everybody wearing a mask, but like, why is it so awkward for me to just go up to a random woman and just start having a conversation? Just go up to a random woman and just start, spark up some sort of conversation. Again, not being an asshole, not being creepy or nothing like that, but we just in line or something like that, and we just talking. You know what I'm saying? And I know it's nothing wrong with it. I think I asked the wrong question, but it's more so I'm thinking about it from the perspective of, like, again, some dudes that maybe aren't able to pick up on those signals. And I guess I'm more so speaking to the women, because y'all gonna have to be a little bit more patient, I think, because you guys are the ones that are more emotionally intelligent. You guys pick up on signals better than we do. So if y'all tell us that all the time. So it's like, if y'all know that, then why not kind of help make the situation a little less awkward if you can? That's all I'm saying. If someone's coming to you in good faith, can we just try to be a little bit nicer to each other? That's the only thing. Like, I seen some dude getting dogged out at the mall. He tried to go up to this, and she was like in front of all her friends, and he went up and shot his shot. You know what I'm saying? He was decent looking young dude, you know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't, but they all laughed him off, and you could tell like that dude was crushed, and like they didn't have to do that, but now, yeah, that dude learned a lesson in that moment and stuff like that. It's very hard to go up into a group. You got to be a certain type of dude to go into a group of women and pull you one. But man, it's just some of the disrespect, some of the lack of some of the contempt and the vitriol that I see, man, is insane, man. And I don't know. I hope that we can get to a point where we start coming to each other in more good faith and trying to understand more about each other, and then on that regard, it's just naturally inherent that as dudes, now on understanding like the nature of females, in that regard, like we have to put in that work as well, because we're the pursuers. I was gonna say predators, but I don't want to use that word. We're the pursuers, right? Like, we have to go and spark up a conversation, go approach a woman. And so it's incumbent upon us to understand them and to know, their nature and all of that sort of stuff. But then on the flip side, I've seen, a lot of women that will like a guy. Like, I've talked to, some women that will like a guy, and they won't pull the trigger, for whatever reason. Something's holding them back. It's a good dude, they're attracted to him, and all of that sort of stuff. He's checking all the boxes, but they just don't want to pull that trigger because they don't want to seem too forward, or whatever is holding them back. And I think, like I said, it's unfortunate, because again, some of these numbers that are coming out with people getting married, later on in life. It used to be people got married around 19, 20 years old. Now they're getting married like 31 to 33 years old, having less children, especially in the black community. Our birth rates are going down, and stuff like that. So, they already say, that black men, like kind of like it was something like black men have like one of the lowest sperm counts per capita or some shit like that, which I don't know. They be talking about like baby daddies and shit like that, but the birth rates are definitely going down though, as much as the media wants to hype up these absentee fathers and these dudes that have like 6 children, because most of the time those are like freaking them celebrities that they posting up, like Future and Lil Durk and stuff like that, having like 6 kids and shit, but the average dude out here maybe, have a couple kids or something like that out of wedlock, but again, the birth rates are going down. So it's we not really coming together like that. Either way you want to slice it, and I don't know. It's really unfortunate, from a lot of stuff that I see, because I can kind of pinpoint certain things, and even though I can pinpoint them, it still doesn't make it any easier for me to navigate some of my relationships that I've had, because, I've tried to address some of these things with some of the women that I've dealt with, and as much as, even if it gets through to them and they might hear me and understand me, putting it into play, and then 2, getting past a lot of the insecurities and maybe even imposter syndrome that they might go through, as well, because I know that I'm not the average guy, like from what they say, right? Like I have my stuff together, I have savings, I have a career, I have an apartment, I have, car, all that sort of stuff. So, I'm trying to adult, right? I'm trying to be all of this stuff. And then I think a lot of women will take a look at themselves and then realize that they haven't been putting in that work themselves. And I think it's daunting for them, where I was 5, 10 years ago or something like that, where I hadn't, excelled and put in that time and effort and stuff like that. So it's really been tough to deal with, because I can't necessarily be the one to teach them those lessons. They have to put that work in themselves. And then even as much as I would be there for them while they were putting in the work, a lot of times I don't think that they're comfortable, with being with someone until they feel like they've put in that work. And that's unfortunate as well, because I think that a lot of us feel that we have to be perfect to be in a relationship. Like we have to be be already where we're supposed to be at. We have to have a house, we have to have that career, we have to have everything. And I think that that's a misconception, and that's again unfortunate as well, because it's just a lack of good faith, a lack of, hey, this person has a purpose, this person is going somewhere, they have potential, so I'm gonna bet on them becoming the best version of themselves. And then on the flip side, if you see a person that is pouring themselves into you and that is standing by you while you're trying to become the best version of yourself, then it's incumbent upon you to want to do that work, to not let them down if you care about them enough, right? Like if that's how I feel, like the people that have believed in me, the people that were there for me when I was down and wasn't at the point that I wanted to be at, those are the people that I fuck with the most, because they've seen me at my lowest point, when I was still trying to become. So that means the most to me, is who is there for you, when you're going through it, and when you are faking it until you make it, and you have that false bravado and stuff, because we all do it. Like you have to. There's no other way that unless you're not gonna do it perfect on the first try. I don't care what nobody says. If you got 1 in a million, you're gonna do it perfect on the first try. You're gonna mess up. Everybody that I talk to that's been uber successful. I talked to a millionaire, multi-millionaire, He's 47 years old. He's got like a 65-year-old wife. You know, they got together when he was 20 years old, and they've been married, you know, pretty much this whole time. You know, he's been through like 3 bankruptcies, you know, made some mistakes and stuff like that. She's tried to get him to make certain investments along the way. He didn't necessarily listen, so they missed out on some stuff. You know, so it's like certain things that I feel like kind of in other circumstances would drive people apart. They've been able to persevere through. And then, you know, he was telling me, I was telling him about some of the things I got going on, investments, opportunities, and things that I'm trying to do. And, you know, he was just telling me, man, you got it, man. How old are you? You know, 35? Oh, man, no, you got it, man. Like when I was 35, I was drinking and fucking not even knowing what the hell I was going to do. And he said he didn't really experience his first success until he was like 42. You know, he said he didn't make his first $1 million until he was 44. And he's 47 now. You know, so he was just giving me words of encouragement, you know, like just to hold my head up, you know, that I'm doing well, you know, and it's nice to get those every now and again and be reminded of that by someone who you respect and by someone who you think of as being successful, you know, because it does take a lot of hard work, and no one sees all of the stuff that happens behind the scenes. You know, no one sees you shooting all those shots in the gym. Nobody sees you, you know, with the extra study time that you put in. You know, nobody sees any of that extra work, you know, the blood, sweat, and tears that you put in. You know, they see the finished product. They see you going out there 360 dunking on people, you know, shooting 90% from the free throw line and cashing out threes and shit. And, you know, that's all they see. They didn't see the hours and hours and hours and hours of you shooting and you working on those moves, you know. But, it can be a daunting thing, but I take it as a compliment. And, you know, when people think it's easy, like that's one of the secrets, I guess, but 48 laws of power. Like, you know, if you do something, if you make it look hard, you're not going to be regarded in the same way. You know, you have to do what you do, but you kind of have to move like it's easy. And it's the same way with women. Like, and I noticed that now. That's the biggest lesson that I've learned in my life up until this point is it doesn't matter what you do. How people view you while you're doing it, it has to be smooth. Otherwise, it doesn't count, especially in the black community, you know. So that's what I'm working on mastering, is going out and slaying these dragons, but doing it silently and not making a stir, not even acknowledging the fact that there were dragons. Like that's my new saying. That's my new thing. Is like, you know, we out here slaying dragons. You know, they invisible. You know what I'm saying, to the naked eye, the people that's not paying attention and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying, but we out here and we slaying them. And the only way that you get respect is if you slay a bunch of them, but you got to do it in silence. You got to strangle them so they don't even make a sound, you know. And I know a lot of women, you know, that I've said that to, they get mad, you know what I'm saying, because I've said it like in reference to like a man dealing with a woman. Like, you can't really tell her about any of the dragons that you slaying because it cheapens it, I guess, you know, to a certain extent. As much as some women might not like to admit it, you know, they don't want to hear about the struggle. They don't want to hear about it from a man's perspective. They want you to actually listen to it from their perspective and really not comment. They just kind of want you to listen to it, which, like I said, is just coming to understand those sort of things, and then who you can bring certain things to, what certain things you can bring to your woman, who you know, what sort of things you should talk to with your therapist, what sort of things you should talk to with your homies, stuff like that. So it's all a growth process, man. And I don't have it perfect. I don't have none of the answers. I'm just here spitballing, trying to do this on the fly. You know, that's why I'm doing this live. That's why I challenged myself. I haven't recorded any videos yet. This is the first video that I recorded. So I'm just gonna keep practicing and keep flying by the seat of my pants like I have been. So it seems like I've done this for almost an hour now. I can't even necessarily recall everything that I talked about, but I feel like I had a good conversation with myself. And the one concurrent viewer that it seems like has been watching, what's up with you? You know, so don't know what your name is, but I appreciate you. You was here from the beginning. Yeah, man. So I plan on doing this pretty consistently. I haven't made a schedule yet, so I don't know exactly how consistently, but you know, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, till next time, peace out. Appreciate y'all.